Happening, you already know. It's your boy Jean Louis, aka the Golden Child. This is a triple threat match for a triple threat review of Backlash 2020. We have the Diamond Cutter, we have the People's Champion, and a lot of things to get into, a lot of things to talk about, especially the greatest match ever. Guys, what was our thoughts on that last match?
I gotta give it to him. It wasn't the greatest match ever, but it definitely went past expectations. Definitely went past expectations. They pulled out a lot of moves that I haven't seen in years between both guys. I mean, when's the last time that you've seen an Edge-o-matic? I can't remember.
True.
If anyone can tell me when's the last time that you've seen Edge do an Edge-o-matic, please let me know. I haven't seen that in a while. They also pulled out some moves outside of their repertoire. We saw a pedigree from Randy Orton. We saw a rock bottom from Edge. That was, out of left field. Wasn't expecting that.
Can we shout out Smooth? Can we shout out Smooth on the thread? He was like, "Yo, listen, why they bodying each other with like here comes the pain moves." I was clapping. Yes. I was clapping. Dude, here comes
Smooth had everything on point as far as like he hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it felt like. It felt like if anybody plays 2K, they put the sliders up. That's what they did. They put the sliders up, definitely. But this was one of those matches that not a lot of people were expecting to be good. They're expecting to be okay. They put a tagline on it. It's not going to be anywhere good. This was, in my opinion, an A to an A+ match. It told the story perfectly. And just shout-outs to Randy Orton, the best heel in wrestling right now. I was biased saying MJF, but it's Randy Orton hands down. It's Randy Orton. He's changed my mind.
Talk to him. Man. First of all, first things first, rest in peace to the Fink, Hal Finkel, because that introduction to the match was it was needed. For a big feel like that, I loved it. They had a retro MSG, thing, and I liked how they did that. So I like that callback a little bit. Safe to say that we had 2, 4, or 5-star matches in one pay-per-view. But starting with this one, I never really worried about them having a great match because I knew they were going to have a good match. They have ridiculous chemistry. So I knew that was going to happen going into the match. The only thing I was somewhat worried about was, can it live up to the hype of or come close to it? And I'm happy that it somewhat did. It just didn't need the tagline of the greatest match ever. Had they not had the greatest match ever tagline and they had that kind of a match, behind it, without that tagline, it probably would have been the top 5 match of 2020. If it already is, but it would have been heightened more without that tagline. I think the tagline kind of just undersells how great of a match it was. From start to finish, all the stops and starts and everything that they did. Like I said last week, Randy Orton is the greatest storyteller in the ring that we have today. It's a lost art. Everything that he does, he leads you to the match. There's a reason why sometimes he does certain things, meticulously. He wants to make sure that every move counts. Every action has a reaction. And what he did last night, and Edge, to his credit, like torn pec and all, had the wherewithal to come out and have a fantastic match. And my hats to both those guys because they definitely tore the house off that night. The only critique that I somewhat have of the match is not the match itself. It's the fact that that piped-in crowd noise was kind of weird because it didn't match the actual crowd reaction. So, I mean, I know the crowd does kill the kind of dramatic effect that it brings to a match, but having us piped-in crowd noise, it didn't do the match service. If it matched it, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. But the way it mirrored what the actual crowd was doing, it didn't meet up to the expectations of what they were trying to do with the crowd noise. And that kind of,
the thing is,
that match as well.
the thing is though, Randy, like I feel like to touch on your point, like, if anybody had a criticism with this, beside like, taking after every person that they've ever faced finisher is, the fact that like the pomp and circumstance was almost too much. If you just had the standalone match, maybe it would be more heightened in other people's eyes. But you had the MSG, you had, like the grand entrances, but in some way, like people are already looking cynical towards this main event. So anything that basically would incite them, to say, hey, listen, they're promoting this, they're doing that, they're doing this, instead of, for example, the SmackDown Intercontinental Championship title match on Friday, where it was just simply, I believe it was a 4 commercial match. That was one of those things where you're like, all right, didn't need the bells and whistles. And you could say that arguably you've had, and you could throw in Drew and Bobby, we'll talk about it later, in that category there, where you had 3, 4 and above star matches. Do want to say this much before we move along. That is how you thigh slap. That is exactly how you thigh slap.
One more thing.
He trolled everybody. Trolled everybody with that thigh slap.
But another thing, another shout out to Randy Orton. I am so glad that they let him do the punt in that match. I am so glad they let him do it.
Yeah,
I was legit scared for Edge's life. That's how the storytelling should have been. They've been teasing it for years, and they finally let him do it last night. So
it felt like the right moment. It felt like the right moment, down to his conversation. Like Randy, the last
he'll kill you. I'll kill you, motherfucker.
The last minute of the match essentially told you it wasn't wrestling anymore. It was a movie. It was a legit movie. Like, like Orton is like the villain that can convince you that he's doing right, and he's like, go home, stay home, and be good with your family.
Tell your daughters that I love them.
Tell your daughters that Uncle Randy said. And then like he goes up on stage, and this is when you have a good villain on your hands. When they like are back, I don't know if I could do it facial expression, but they thicken out their neck and they just look at you just like with their eyes squinting, and you could just see them cutting, just like, yeah, I did that shit. I did that. Yeah, you're going back up. Like he had that look in his face of like, yo, you put him in any movie, anything. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm believing. Right. So, honestly, a fantastic main event. Obviously, like I wouldn't necessarily say it's the greatest match ever. It's hard to say, like, we can't be Meltzers with this, like immediately after, 7 stars. But for what they did, it was absolutely fantastic. And it showed both about Edge, and especially for Randy Orton, that they can, not only they can go, but they can provide a match of that caliber. Because to me, I haven't seen a match like that in years, like right. in legit years. But moving on from something that capped off the pay-per-view and was fantastic to something that was right before it. You had the Street Profits and Viking Raiders storyline that was going on, and with that storyline, it kind of, if you watched it throughout the pay-per-view, you essentially got a vibe of not only that storyline, but a lot of those other mid-tier to low-card storylines kind of play out in similar fashions. That bait and switch. We were supposed to get a match. We had predictions for the match on the prediction show. We ultimately got what we got. Guys, what are our thoughts on this?
Randy, you want to go first on this one?
Get your rant going.
Yes, sir. All right. So, here's my gripe with this. It discredits both teams, to be honest with you. It really is discrediting both teams. This has been going on for how long? A month and a half now? They've been having these little hijinks they've been having on Raw. And partially it's not their fault. It's not their fault because there is no tag division on Raw. As a matter of fact, if you really think about it, between all 3 brands, there is no tag division, not even in SmackDown. So it's not entirely their fault, but it's just getting kind of old now. It started off as a brawl, and that was great. I love the fact it started off as a brawl. I wanted to see some seriousness between the two. But then it just went left after that. You started seeing bowling balls and shields and golf clubs and Akira Tozawa. I don't know where he got in the mix all of a sudden. He showed up like, you know, he was like a bad guy on Fast and the Furious or something. And a whole bunch of ninjas, and then it ended up with them brawling again on top of a production truck, and then them falling into the garbage can. And then the running gag they got going with Ivar with, you know, I don't know the referee's name, forgive me, but she came out of nowhere and was just like, Ivar, you're cute. And, you know, Eric, not so much. Sucks because my name is Eric too, but whatever. But, you know, it's just getting tiring. And then it just discredits both teams because both teams are more than capable of putting on a great match, especially those four guys. They have a lot of chemistry together, clearly. But it was just regular Monday Night Raw hijinks to me. It wasn't a match. It never, even Todd Phillips said afterwards, it was not a match. It just got postponed.
You know, it's funny because, like, I looked at that match and I kind of saw an even worse version because people have been making this whole big thing about, you know, cinematic matches being a big deal and whatnot recently, right? And this is strapped to it, you know, being quote unquote the worst of the pack. I look at this and I'm like, this is what WCW did, but worse. Like the mid 90s when they were basically doing all these things where there was cameos from multiple different superstars in roles that you weren't necessarily, you know, you necessarily saw them in. Like, you know, you'll have Ric Flair somewhere, you'll have this guy somewhere, you'll have Sting doing whatever role, and somehow Hogan's on top again. And it was kind of weird to me. So, I mean, Randy, your sentiments.
Well, hold on, before Randy.
Yeah, go ahead. My bad.
It was still, it had a couple of jokes here and there. I liked Ivar calling the turkey leg like Milnor from and being Thor. That was pretty funny. That got a little chuckle out of me.
Yeah.
Montez Ford singing, that got me. That got me. I always believe that Montez Ford.
Montez Ford's performance in general, like
he's just.
Yeah.
I might be funny. A little biased, but
it's, of course the booking's terrible, but both teams in this, I believe, like have done the best you could do with it.
Right.
It's like Stardust level of, yeah, there's a pile of crap, but I'm performing my ass off. Like
basically. And even the joke that they did, you know, when Ford looked at Doc and goes, hey, what did the five fingers say to the face? And then they just started brawling out of nowhere. So there was some parts in there that made me chuckle, but overall, like, it wasn't needed. I felt like you could have put another match there. But I'm going to let Randy take the floor, you know, because he looks like he has a lot on his mind, and I don't blame him.
Man, kill it.
I mean, it would see. I'm gonna go different with this one. The segment was good if it was on Raw. Last night, it was not needed at all. It was not needed at all. Like, the segment itself, I would have had no problem with it had it been on free TV on Raw like it has been for the last 2 months. But you're at a pay-per-view event. This had no need for comic relief. And now you basically further devalue the tag team titles, which you've done routinely, especially the last now going on 3 years, ruining the tag team division. It's like, what's the purpose of you having credible tag teams? You're going to just shit on them, Vince. Because I know he gets last say in terms of how things go, and scraps up a story that can make people, even the lowest of the totem pole, look somewhat credible. This is the reason why the Revival left.
Yeah, they
could have stayed.
They tweeted about it. They
could have stayed,
yeah,
and been fine with it, you know, unless if you made tag team wrestling credible. You had virtually the best tag team roster under your roof, and you shit on it. Like, you basically just hopped over, turn around, and just diarrhea crap off everything that these people have worked their asses off. The Viking Raiders, fuck that. War Machine was the best independent tag team going, or hottest tag team independently going, before Triple H signed them. You bring them to NXT, they're running through roughshod everybody. Undisputed Era, Forgotten Sons. Hell, we were there at 25 when it was going crazy during that ladder match. And I'm like, even then, you feared for those guys, because once they go to the main roster, Vince and NXT call-ups don't mix. Like, he's gonna fuck you up some way, one way or another. And it's so sad and it's so messed up, because these teams are very talented. However, I will say this about the Viking Raiders. Even though they did give them a character facelift or whatever to fit their whatever they want, they have taken that ball and made the best of it. And having a good dance partner like the Street Profits, they've made that angle plausible to watch. But as it pertained to last night, it was not needed. You had matches.
With all due respect, Ren, I feel like it's flipped. Because it's like, if it was on Raw, fair, but in the same token, it's like, you did not, like, they were fun-loving. Like, that whole rivalry was like, it was exhibition based, right? And then you fast forward, and I think that's the biggest problem, at least to me, with their storyline that night, is that it was a anything you could do, I could do better thing. When did they start coming to blows? Like, it was kind of confusing to me that it was like there was no kind of story arc. So I get what you're saying, but it's almost as if, like, during the pay-per-view, I have seen a story angle work throughout. Attitude Era was full of those. So that could work. It could work. It's just, you have to have the continuity there. The whole week leading up to it, they were feuding with Lashley and MVP. And both of the teams were just making jokes about the other team. They were fun-loving. Fast forward to the pay-per-view, the first scene you see, they're coming to blows, and they, have the running gag now of taking out Braun Strowman's car. So it's like, what are you trying to show me? Are you trying to show me that, Viking Raiders are trying to take advantage of Street Profits' naiveness, or vice versa? What is it? So I think I think what you're looking for is that's the case. You need the continuity within the tag teams in order to, But
there's no other tag teams. There's no other tag teams you can do this with.
No. But what I'm trying to say to you is, like, all of the stuff that happened on the pay-per-view would have worked. The main problem is that they were not telling us about this story beforehand. It had nothing to do with anything you could do, I could do better. It had everything to do with, I'm gonna just whoop your asses. But it didn't. We didn't get that. The only remnants that we got on the pay-per-view was the bowling ball, and basically the small artifacts from all of their rivalries. I mean, all of their stuff during the rivalry preceding this pay-per-view. But in the same token, it didn't add anything. If you were to show this to a person who doesn't watch the show week by week, and you give it to them and you ask them, what do you think the rivalry was before this? It's probably like, one team beat up the other team, and they said, we are going to see you at the pay-per-view and beat you up there. It's a blood feud. Not really. It's not. So it's like, what story are you trying to tell me? I think that's the biggest thing over everything, because we see this in the good side with Usos, 2017 into 2018 is a perfect example of this. They were an aggressive team. Their continuity was, Uso paranoia, welcome to the Uso penitentiary, and they were angry, they were vicious, and that was basically the best iteration of the Usos. Then they got into a rivalry with the New Day, it ramped up. After the rivalry, it became 1 week we're fun-loving, and the next week we're angry. 1 week we're fun-loving, the next week we're angry. There wasn't any continuity there. So to your point again, I think that's the biggest hurdle that they need to get. They need to focus on
It ain't they.
Exactly.
It's only one person. It ain't they. They doing their job. Only one person.
We could talk about this until the cows come home, but you know that's at least from my piece, that's the biggest issue for them. I feel like it's flip flopping in the pay per view because the next thing, you know, an ascending or descending order that we have to discuss is the WWE Championship match because it was good. You know, we went from good, greatest match ever, to bad, to good. Guys, what do we think about this?
Man. I said earlier we had two 5-star matches in the same damn night. Put it together, it'd probably be an 8.5 out of 10. And in the pay-per-view right there, I would have been like, man, it was a great pay-per-view. But, unfortunately, things happen like the Street Profits. But as pertaining to this match, I wasn't worried. Bobby Lashley in championship matches, according to the WWE Championship matches, is 2-0 in terms of providing the kind of effort to have great matches. Because 13 years ago in the Great American Bash, against someone you can't see, they had a fantastic match. Even though Bobby didn't win that one, should have. That told me that if given the opportunity, he can get to that opportunity to become WWE champion. Last night, although I know this feud's gonna keep going longer, I knew it wasn't gonna quite happen last night. But last night was an iteration like, yo, I almost had you. Like, I almost got you. Right here. If it hadn't have been for my wife, I would have, you know, and like in some ways, the way they kind of interacted reminded me of Angle and Brock on SmackDown when they had those series of matches back in 2003. Yo, they were doing
the transition.
When the submissions came out, I was like,
you were looking back at their book and you were wondering, like, it was on page 6. It's a footnote.
I knew Lashley had it in his book.
What is this?
I ain't gonna front. When Drew left and Drew came back, he added to his book. Like, his book been crazy. So I was like, I didn't know you had that in your book, Drew. So when he was doing things against Lashley, I was like, wait a minute. And then Lashley was like, nah, fuck that. Crossface, got out of it. Boom, boom. Nah, screw that. Got him. Ankle lock. I was like, whoa, chill, bro. I didn't know you had that in your book. I was like, man, that match, man, like, it could have went either way. I would have been satisfied. But Jesus Christ, it was a very good match. That's how we do title matches.
Definitely a dope match. Big E, what you thinking, man? What you thinking?
Bravo to both men. Bravo. It was a really good match. Another match I felt like some people were a little worried about, just a little bit concerned. But I have to say, on Drew's part, Drew has been delivering as WWE champion. I can honestly say that. And hats off to creative, because we don't give creative enough credit for this. But he has been up against credible people who you could see as a threat to Drew McIntyre's WWE championship. So that was that's really good on their part. On Bobby Lashley's part, again, he proved that he's championship material. He proved it. He's championship material. At any time he's ready to go, I feel like this sets him up for the quote-unquote super match that they're possibly planning for SummerSlam. This makes him look like a strong competitor. You know, he did take the loss, yes, but he won. His character is not diminished at the end of the day. And there will be a rematch for that title between those two. So I hope the story continues between them. If it doesn't, I will be a little bit disappointed because both men put on a really, really good match that is definitely worthy of another one.
I called it on the nose, and I was like, At a certain point, the match captivated me that I just forgot about Lana. Like, I forgot. It captivated me so much that I forgot that she was storyline.
That's what they
and then hooked you, line and sinker.
And that's the beauty of having more than one story within a story.
Yeah. I was in a convo with a friend of mine, and he was very up in arms about the finish, and he thought that, you know, it kind of diminished Bobby in some way. And I was like, no, not at all. I felt that this was the best, like the absolute right answer, best way that they could whatchamacallit, have Drew win, have Bobby look strong, and have MVP look as every bit of the dangerous manager that he is. Because it wasn't by their doing that they lost. It wasn't by their doing. It was by the intrusion of, you know, Lana, unfortunately. So
if anything, this actually refocuses Bobby even more, in my opinion. This refocuses him and makes him even more dangerous if they go that route with his character. So I like it.
And I can imagine the segment. Like whether or not it's like tonight on Raw or, you know, weeks preceding SummerSlam or even Extreme Rules. It could be even sooner, when Bobby just ultimately has that ultimate turn on Lana and just says, "I want a divorce. I'm up and out," and he does it in a way that basically gets people talking. I could definitely see that. Again, with the roller coaster ride of this pay-per-view, we go Universal Championship title match. John Morrison, Miz, Braun Strowman. I feel like skipping it, but I do. Before we, if you guys are comfortable with skipping it, I do have one thing to say.
I got one thing to say too, but I'll let you go.
They had promoted. We all knew what was going to happen. We all knew that Braun Strowman was going to like go to town on them, and we all knew like they were going to basically use Morrison and Miz as, you know, cannon fodder for and basically a pit stop before he gets back to Bray, the Fiend. But the way they did it basically doubled down even worse on the outlook of Miz and Morrison, because you could have easily just had them like, you poke the bear, you might get caught. It could have been just that, but it wasn't even that. It was more. It was, oh, we poked the bear, we almost got caught, we almost had a chance to win, but now we're jealous of each other, so we're not going to go after the title together. And it's like, all right, similar, and I had this, again, you know, back to the Street Profits and Viking Raiders, it's the similar thing where the weeks leading up to it, you told us one story, but you gave us another story entirely in this one particular night. And it's like, all right, Miz and Morrison are basically hijinks geeks. They're impractical jokers, essentially, in this particular storyline. When was there a hint at John Morrison or Miz being jealous of one another or wanting to go after the Universal Championship? When? There needed to be at least something that basically alluded to that fact. So now it just essentially makes it look like they're chumps. They're essentially, you know, Big Show and Kane whenever they were feuding as the Authority. Oh, I want a pin. Oh, I want a pin. Or, oh, I want to run the Royal Rumble. Oh, I want to run the... And in the back of your minds, are like, all right, Roman's going to win. Whoever is the other face, they're going to win because you guys are arguing who's going to pick up the victory. When in actuality, you guys could just do the lay cool thing, win, and then whatever. So I don't like the way that they did that, because I was at peace with knowing that they were just going to job the Braun. I was at peace. But then you just made them look stupid on top of that. Floor is yours.
3 points that I have wrong with this.
Yeah.
4 points now, because I just thought about nothing else.
Mm.
1, they kind of made this into like a semi-triple threat match almost, because they made it like, okay, it's a 2-on-1 handicap match, but whoever pins Braun becomes Universal Champion. The only difference is that Miz and Morrison couldn't pin each other. You know, I get it. It's supposed to be a semi-gimmick match. Understandable, but I think you were better off having a triple threat match, in my opinion. I felt like you were better off having a triple threat. Next point. Braun Strowman, I think they waited too late to put the Universal title on him, because his title run has been more than lackluster. The only person that he really thought that's credible and that made sense was Bray. So ever since then, this is only his second title defense. I'm not, I think they should have struck when 2018, 2017, somewhere around there. They should have put the Universal title on him around that time.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth on this topic. It's like, here's the thing with Braun. He is championship. Of course, he's a champion. He's championship material, no doubt.
Not even diminishing that.
The way his character has been made, he's not, like, at least to me, it's my impression. He's not built to be that champion. Like, all right, I'm gonna fight. I'm tactical. I'll win. He's that head case champion where it's like, I'm taking on all comers. I'm angry. I won this off of emotion. I'm not a prestige type of guy. Like, I'm here to fuck you up. So I could literally lose this on a whim and still just be angry. Like, it's not your main motivation. I'm built on mayhem. I'm not built on prestige. So I think that, we had the conversation before he was even champion where I was like, I don't know if it's the right way. It was because of this. I was like, I feared that once he became champion, then what? Because there's something to be said about a fighting champion who could fight from under. There's something to be said about a champion who, holds to a high standard and is patterned after greatness and has all these guys that they are inspired by and would like to inspire. But if you're just a guy who's like, I see Braun, I see Kane, I see, all these different guys from the past where it was like, you don't want to fuck with them. And outside of it was brought to my attention, Kane had the world title reign in 2010. But even then, even that elongated, title reign that he had a storyline element that was built on mayhem. And he had it with Bray. He was getting there. He was getting there. And I get that you can't do it because he's now on dad maternity leave, because he's there caring for his newborn. But you have to still kind of find a way, give him something where it's like, all right, I'm a mayhem guy. Same thing with Dean Ambrose. I'm a mayhem guy. Feed me to some people who just like to fight. Miz is the safest worker known in the wrestling thing. He doesn't want to mess with Braun. What is his motivation? Nobody knows. So nobody was going to basically be interested, in this title match. So there's levels to it. You know what I mean? And I feel like they're basically feeling the wrath of that.
And my last 2 points, I was very disappointed that the Fiend did not show up. I felt like he didn't have to really do much, but just make his presence known. And then you could have started that story with the Fiend right after Extreme Rules. Or same thing, Fiend shows up at Extreme Rules. That takes into the story to SummerSlam. And then my last point, to your point, the whole confusion with Miz and Morrison, I don't know what's going on with that either. That's another team. Right, that's another team I feel like should be in your tag division right now, but it's just now you're gonna make them turn on each other. You're gonna have them have a match at SummerSlam. Then it's like, okay, then what? What happens after that? Yeah. That's the best they're gonna get out of each other for right now.
Want to get to another match that was kind of to me, but we do have to talk about it. Nia Jax, Asuka. It did end in a double count out. Asuka did get the better of her at the very end. What was our, thoughts on it as it was happening? Let's start with People Champ. Come on.
I'll say this about that match. I felt that, to be quite honest, it always seems that every time Nia's in the ring with Asuka, she always does a better job with Asuka in the ring. That's just me. But I would say this is one of her better performances since she's been back since her double ACL surgery. Whether she can build on that, that's just up for debate. But one thing I know for sure, dating back to NXT, her and Asuka make good dance partners. It was a solid match for what it was given. I'm not saying it was going to be a great, oh my God, I was wowed. But for the pay-per-view and the story that it served, it was a solid match. My only critique, or the only thing I didn't like, was how it was a countout per se. But I could understand the reasoning because Nia is almost a 6-footer, ranging around 260 pounds. She's brute force. So you can't really beat her on the means of just pure skill. You have to find ways to outsmart her. And considering that this is a blood feud in a sense because of, her interaction with Kairi Sane and, eliminating her from the equation and poking Asuka's, ire, getting her angry and getting all her aggression on her, it definitely served that feel for that fight. And it was solid for what it was. It ended the way it did. I know, to further the storyline, because for me, I'd rather enjoy that because the further they do that, the further they keep Charlotte away from the title. But I know at some point they're probably gonna just say scrap that and then give it to Charlotte in terms of Asuka and Charlotte. And I'm not quite ready for that yet, But again, that's where we're at. But they both did a solid job last night for what it was worth. So, for people who shit on Nia Jax, don't give a crap because she did a really good job last night. So I gotta give it up to her.
All right, good match, bad ending. What say you, Biggie?
I feel differently than my tag team partner.
Okay. All right.
I actually like the ending. Yeah, because when he said it, I was like, I'm glad he brought it up. I actually like the ending. The ending protects both characters. It protects Asuka and it protects Nia Jax. To your point with, the couple of matches that we did speak on, there wasn't much. There was a story behind it, and they did build this up since Asuka did get the title from Becky. But it was like they didn't really have too much interaction with each other. There was a couple of interactions they had with each other. But for the most part, they stayed far away from each other. So there was no driving force behind this match. So they needed a double count. I mean, it doesn't. Asuka normally wins her matches by what? Submission. I've never really seen her pin somebody and get the 1, 2, 3. I've always seen submissions. That's how she wins. Nia will get the 1, 2, 3 on you. It's more believable if Nia Jax were to hit her finisher, pin Asuka, and win the title. That's more believable. It's more believable also if Asuka were to choke out Nia Jax. But in this case, it really didn't make sense. So, so the double count out made sense to me. And of course, we have the next pay-per-view, Extreme Rules, which hopefully that leads to like a last woman standing match or something of that nature where you have to incapacitate your opponent. So I like the setup. I like the double count out. The match wasn't glamorous. We already knew it wasn't going to be one of those kind of things. But as far as the finish goes, I enjoyed it. I felt like that was the right call.
I'm splitting hairs between you. I'm gonna just be in the middle. I'm gonna be in the middle, and I think the thing is like I do like I had a conversation before we got on with Ty, and he was because he happened to watch this match. He wasn't able to watch a good portion of the pay-per-view, but he did catch this one, and he mentioned that it was like lackluster the first chapter, second chapter picked up, third chapter, at least in his mind, was lackluster. And those sentiments I kind of echo because I feel like, one, there's a way that they could have, like, if you wanted to keep Nia Jax strong in this storyline, there was a way to do it with a conclusive finish. But there's two more points here. One, in a whatchamacallit, pay-per-view where you don't have too much conclusive stuff. There's a lot of bait and switch in this pay-per-view. A lot of bait and switch, and that's been happening for a year. You don't have the match with, the Raiders and the Street Profits. That's a bait and switch. We're going to get into the fact that we didn't have 2 matches on this pay-per-view. That's a bait and switch. And then you have this match here that, if you looked at Raw last week, the impression you had was that Nia Jax is standing in Asuka's way, but Charlotte is that big cloud that is over her. So while Randy may not like it, Charlotte's next up. You know, the thing is, at least for me as a viewer, it's like, all right, Asuka's gonna win by some hook or by crook. Moving on to the Charlotte storyline, where Lord knows who's gonna win. So you're like, all right, cool. You fast forward to this pay-per-view, and it's like, oh, Asuka's not over, but Charlotte is okay. So what are they gonna do to basically keep Charlotte steady while she's waiting? Maybe, you know, she enters like a mid-tier feud with a Ruby I was about to say Ruby Riot or something of that nature. Maybe she just chills. Who knows? But it's one of those things where it leaves you up in the air, especially when you just do the bait and switch. Third thing, and I feel like this is the biggest thing that I had an issue with, was the storytelling element in the match. And Eric, you touched on it a little bit. A lot of the storyline basically was kind of like inconsistent, but it did have a certain elements that you could gravitate towards. And I think that when you miss the element of, and this happens with, has happened for the past 5 years with the NXT people, when you miss the element of storytelling from the NXT story arc and you don't bring it onto the main roster, you lose people. Because we have seen this before. Just tell us. Don't wait till the pay-per-view and have the commentators give us that information. Let that play into the storyline. What made Triple H and The Rock's rivalry so great in retrospect was the fact that they outlined their upbringings as Blue Blood and Rocky Maivia, into DX, The Rock, the original Rock with the Nation of Domination, into Triple H and, you know, the People's Champion. They had that story arc, and they made note of it on television. And then you had the commentators, and that's what made the commentators so special. They didn't give you the news. They added it. They added, you know, context behind it. It's not their job to offer, like, I remember, I forget who was the commentator. I believe maybe it was Byron Saxton, who basically mentioned, oh yeah, they had the rivalry back in NXT. And it's like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. They did. They did, you know? And it's kind of sucks that didn't play a role, because it made, like, even the very, like, the presentation of Asuka having the women's title, right? That could have played in, at the very least, into Nia Jax's motivations to go after her, because it's like, you've been chosen since NXT, and I've had to fight this hurdle since I have met you. It's always been Asuka. It's never been about Nia Jax, and I want to change that. You could have that story simply play out, and all that takes is what, 10 seconds of mic work. So
10 seconds of mic work.
So I think that's a big thing that, you know, they need to kind of focus on, because NXT is now canon in WWE lore and Raw, SmackDown lore, because it's on USA. So you have no reason to hide from it. It is a big element, a big chunk that they're missing. And don't give me the fact that you can't use it, because you have used it with the Four Horsewomen. So I'll just leave it at that. That's at least my main concern on that one. Sheamus, Jeff Hardy. You know, Sheamus picked up the win. There was a lot of close near falls. Jeff Hardy did happen to get the Swanton Bomb, almost got the 1-2, but Sheamus, you know, bro kicked them to Kingdom Come, called the W. What do we think about it?
This kind of just furthers the feud, I guess. This is one of those things that has been a consistent storyline so far.
Mm.
One of the few matches on the card that have been consistent. This is a feud that a lot of people I don't think a lot of people are really interested in, but it's just, they're trying to throw in the factor of Jeff Hardy's looking for redemption. He's looking for that one last final run, you know, the chase at the strap. That's what he's looking for right now. It sets up the feud even longer. There will be a match at the next pay-per-view, more than likely. If not, you know, on SmackDown for the, you know, coming weeks. Afterwards, who does what afterwards. I could probably see Jeff going after AJ Styles, if anything, for the Intercontinental Championship, because right now Styles is still with in a program with Bryan. So I can see, Jeff Hardy, AJ Styles having a match at SummerSlam. Sheamus, I really don't see anything for Sheamus. Maybe Universal Champion, maybe. Maybe him just if Shinsuke and Cesaro don't work out as a tag team, maybe the bar gets back together. Who knows? But it just furthers the feud. It was just it's there.
Randy, you echo the same sentiments just there? Because we
yeah, I mean, I echo. Yeah, it's there. Everything that Eric said,
I only asked that because we could table it and rant on the women's tag team match. If you want, because I had the conversation with Tyler, and basically it was the first thing that he touched on, bleeds into what we were talking about with the Raiders and the Profits and the SmackDown tag team titles, where it's just like the tag team wrestling in WWE is just fallen off so bad, and not to the fact that the performers, they're doing their jobs, they're doing it to the best of their abilities. The match quality may have been good, it may have been bad, it may have been meh, but they're doing the best that they can. That being said, the substance with it, I'll keep it real with you. When that match happened, I wanted to go take a shower. I didn't even watch it. I knew it was going to happen. I took a shower. Came back, they won. It was what it was.
You know what's my main thing about that women's six-man title match? Oh, six-woman title match, excuse me. My main problem was, and I guess we're just going to name this episode The Art of Storytelling, because that's exactly what went on here. For weeks, you've seen each team go through a little bit of a divide. The Iconics went through a little bit of a problem. Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, they went through a little bit of a problem. Bayley and Sasha have been going through problems. They've been trying to wedge this for a long time. So each team had a problem with their partner. That didn't happen in this match. It was like everything was all good. That's what it was. 1 week you're showing me with the Iconics, what was it? It was Billie Kay who slapped Peyton Royce, I believe.
Yeah.
You showed me that on Raw. Tried to psych her up. She could have felt some type of way about that. You could have made that a storyline. Then you have Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. They lost the titles, and then the next match they have, if it's not the next match, the match after, is it Nikki Cross takes the L for the team, and then the ongoing Bayley and Sasha thing. So it's like it made an interesting dynamic at first because each team had a problem, and that was supposed to play a factor into this match. That didn't play a factor at all. It was just the only thing that played a factor into anything was the Bayley and Sasha situation, which they did that before they even got to the ring. As they were introing everyone, they were interviewing backstage, and Bayley was by herself, and she was like, "Oh, there's no problem between me and Sasha. Oh, everybody's trying to drive a wedge between us and blah, 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 blah." And it just ended right there. Boom. That's it. There was no story within the ring. And then my next gripe is now that, okay, Bayley and Sasha defended the title successfully, which in their first run, they didn't do successfully. They had one title defense and they lost it. Now they successfully defended the titles. Who's next in line? Who do you put up next between them? Charlotte is primed to go after Asuka, which I'm okay with because those two in the ring have great chemistry. I'm okay with that. I just feel like Asuka needs to win, but that's further down the line. You can't put Tamina. Tamina's been off radar. Who else I'm trying to think is on SmackDown as far as women go?
Naomi.
Naomi. Who knows what she's doing? Carmella's not there. Lacey Evans is non-existent now. Natalia's on Raw. And her perfect partner.
Hey, hold on a moment. SmackDown got all these women,
right?
And you ain't using.
Not using them. Not using them. Natalia's on Raw, not doing nothing. And her perfect tag partner would be Charlotte. Just off the strength of they have history together, they know each other. That would be her perfect tag partner. And also, again, Charlotte being selfish, I love her, but she's being selfish for this, wants to go after a men's title eventually. So, you know, that's the rumor on Rumor Mill.
That's a Blanchard. All right.
But, yeah, so it's like you have all these, like to Randy's point, you have all these women on SmackDown who are not getting anything. Nothing. And then you have women on Raw who you're not really using. Kairi Sane, I know she's out. Nia Jax is in the storyline already with Asuka. Becky, you know, she's pregnant. Charlotte is just waiting in the shadows.
Vince doesn't like the way Shayna Baszler looks, so she's not on.
Yeah, Shayna Baszler doesn't have the proper look, so she's in the back. Natalia's in the back. So it's like you have the proper Bianca Belair. I don't know what the hell she's doing. She's not even on TV, which is beyond me because right after Mania, it looked like they were going to showcase her, and then now they just got rid of her. Selena Vega could be a good single star by herself, but they have her being a manager, which I understand.
Yeah,
but it's just you have the
women do both. She
can do both. She can absolutely do both.
That's no excuse. That's bullshit. She could do both.
She can do both.
I mean, we could table it and hop straight to her associate Andrade. He had a championship match against Apollo that turned about into a Apollo W. Kevin Owens came in for the save after Angel Garza, tried to come in and sabotage the title defense. Our thoughts on this, and also them canceling the singles match between the two interrupters, the two intruders, Kevin Owens and Garza.
Oh, man. I think we were robbed of a really good match. We were robbed of a very good match as far as the Kevin Owens, Angel Garza. I think that anytime that you are an up-and-coming star and they put you up against a company guy like Kevin Owens, that shows that they have a lot of faith in you. And that was a match I honestly really wanted to see. I really wanted to see that match. I wanted to see Angel Garza go up against somebody who is world championship material. As far as the Bobby Lashley, I'm sorry. The
look like
Apollo
him.
Crews, yeah. I mean,
look
he
like
looks like his little brother.
A little shorter, the same.
Same stocky, same build. The Apollo Crews and Andrade match. This again, the art of storytelling. You can't have Angel Garza at ringside trying to help Andrade when Andrade just beat him in a triple threat match to see who the number one contender was. I just don't think that should have happened. Garza should not have been watching his back. Garza should have been like, you know what? I'm staying in the back because this is it. Clearly I didn't get a title opportunity, so why am I?
Or at the very least, just pull up. Just pull up. Just pull up. Have some popcorn. They're like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Roll up."
He's that type of. His character is that type of heel that could have done something like that, and it would have been great. It would have been him coming there with a steel chair, and you think he's coming there to help Andrade. Nah, I'm gonna unfold the chair, sit down, kick my feet up, watch the match, maybe have a popcorn or two, maybe even flirt with one of the girls that was behind the glass. You could have done that. It would have absolutely fit his character. As far as KO being on commentary, and that's another thing. You had KO in this as well. That it all fit together and you didn't fit it anywhere. Even with KO on commentary, Joe had hinted at the fact that, maybe he's out here scouting because maybe he wants to be next in line for a United States Championship opportunity. And, that kind of hinted at, possibly KO going after the title, maybe a heel turn. We've seen KO be a face before and go after a title and turn heel. We've seen this already.
Can you tell me in real quick? I gotta say something.
Go ahead. Do you think?
Aside from a lot of the lowlights, which we've basically spent more of the time basically highlighting, I'd like to give a special shout out to my guy Samoa Joe, because he had a lot of jabs tonight. He was like Jay-Z last night. You know you got bars, and when you got them bars that go under the radar that will fuck you up, Samoa Joe had that last night and he had them sneak disses the entire night. Even when he was talking about AJ Styles when he was talking backstage, he was like, man, I'm proud of AJ Styles. Maybe he can use this time, this opportunity to spend, to celebrate this win with his family. And
that look.
I was like, and the way he looked at the camera, I was like, why is no one talking about this? This nigga Samoa Joe, this guy Samoa Joe, my guy.
You know what? I'll do you. Tag me in real quick. I'll tag you right back. Yeah. That's how you do it, AEW. If you want a commentator who is a wrestler, who's in a storyline, and you want to make it continuity, that's how you do it.
Joe doesn't.
I know you did it last week with Chris. I'll give respect where respect is due, because they did it last week with Chris Jericho, and how they basically went after the best friends. But that is how you do it. Samoa Joe keeping that continuity going with them talking about Chris Jericho being the next Bobby Heenan or something along those lines. Samoa Joe right there with you. So that's your answer.
It's not even that. He was putting certain scenes the entire night as if it's like, yeah, I may be in this booth right now. He even said about, I forgot who was it in the ring. It's like, you got a set of boots right now. Samoa Joe, what are you talking about? What are you alluding to right now? We all know he's behind the booth for a reason. He's been rehabbing and doing all these things, but it's just man, if there's any time in one person that you want to fuck up a show, it's Samoa Joe. It just makes no sense. And even when he was doing commentary with KO, I'm like, and both of them are doing well on commentary. And it's I hate this right now because you guys are so much more than that.
I will give credit. I'll give credit where credit is due as far as with Joe. Joe and KO are the two most entertaining wrestlers that if you put them on commentary, it'll make you pay attention to the match, because the amount of jokes, sneak dissing, and honest to God truth is going to come out their mouths. And that's what makes good commentary. So I will give it to them. To be honest with you, the match was great. It wasn't great, but it was good.
It was a good match.
The match was good. It was a good match, but what took it over the top was the commentary. And the commentary told a story. And that's what I was looking for. But inside the ring, it didn't do it for me as far as storytelling goes. It didn't do it for
me. Yeah. It's that chain of events that, is circular. It basically, you build it up on the main show, and then you lead it to the pay-per-view so you could get the perfect payoff. Which leads me to another canceled match that should have happened, but unfortunately was canned. That was Seth Rollins versus Aleister Black. We didn't get no Dominic turn. We didn't get no, Aleister Black win. We didn't get
we'll save the Dominic turn for August, but
yeah. But again, the bait and switch, there's certain stuff that I could rock with, but the bait and switch, WWE, just I get it. You're trying to put the best card out there. You're trying to put a certain amount of matches. Just limit yourself to those matches if you want. Just don't fool us, man. We get it. Don't hype us up anymore. Don't go for the ratings. Don't just give us something. Give us a package and then just stand by it so we could.
I just feel like those were the two most interesting matches and the two most interesting dynamics as far as stories go that should have happened.
Would have made the show.
I think those, right. And I felt like Seth Rollins needed that match to happen. I mean, yeah, we saw it on Raw, but he needed that match to happen only because, one, he needed the win, which, we alluded to in the last episode. He needed the win. This furthered the story between him and Mysterio. This gave also Black an opportunity to really showcase himself even more, because a lot of people don't really know too much about Aleister Black, and that's not his fault. It's just that they're not utilizing him on the main roster very much. So, there's a lot of factors that went into it that should have happened and didn't happen. And, unfortunately, that match got scraped. Hopefully, tonight we see more of a.
I don't want to see the match tonight. If it should have been
I don't want to see the match tonight either. Yeah. I don't want to see the match tonight either. That goes for the KO and Garza match as well.
Exactly.
I don't want to see it.
Pay-per-view, man.
We probably gonna get it. Maybe we're probably gonna get something at Extreme Rules leading into SummerSlam, but it's something to be said. Got final thoughts on pay-per-view?
Because of the two matches that saved the show, I give it. It was solid, man. It was a solid pay-per-view for what it was. It was filler for certain matches that they had, but for the matches that I was looking for, both of those matches delivered. Like I said before, like those matches combined, it's like 8.5 out of 10. Like they came through with the fire. I would probably even say 9 out of 10 because they're both 4.5 to me, because the way they went at each other and the storytelling in those matches, it saved the show. And overall, I give the show a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Because those two matches saved it. It wasn't. I give it an old Bret Hart 4 out of 10. But seriously speaking, I think this was more of a filler to set up the SummerSlam lineup with Extreme Rules coming down. I just wish that there was more from a lot of other matches that were given. Certain matches finished the way they did because I understood it. Like Eric alluded to, one of the matches being Asuka versus Nia Jax. I understand it. Well, the other matches that were on that night, it served what it served. I just want to see more moving forward. So that's why I felt like, it was those two matches, the WWE title and the main event, kind of saved the whole event for me.
Big E, final thoughts, brother.
Solid pay-per-view. Solid. I agree. With my tag partner.
Yes, sir.
Definitely those two matches saved the pay-per-view, because everything else, either the consistency wasn't there or it just really did not interest you. So those two matches definitely saved the pay-per-view. My match of the night clearly would be the main event. Main event was really good. Overall, I'll be nice. I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. But those two matches are definitely 5-star. Well, Drew and Bobby, give it 4.5, and main event I'll give it 5 stars. Definitely.
Oof. Y'all gonna make me feel like a smart. I too as well did enjoy the two shows, but the two matches, but the two matches can't outweigh like the little problems and the big problems that we saw in this pay-per-view. I feel like maybe like I lean more towards like even a 6, 5.5 even. Like I consider that like average to me. Like that's like I could watch it, but it's background noise. I could go to the kitchen, I'll see something, and I ask Randy, "Yo, who won?" "Oh, all right." Like it's one of those pay-per-views. If it's anything above that, then I got to sit down at the TV and watch it and know that this is what's going on, this is what's happening. But if I could just sit there and say, "Oh, it's passable," I have to say it's under a 7. But the two matches did save it from being a lot worse. That being said, guys, thank you for coming on. And for you guys who are watching this, thanks for listening. Like, share, subscribe. People's Champ, take it away with the rest.
Hey, man, once again, just follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. We just re-upped our Instagram page. We're back on Instagram. We're back on the gram at the Backstage Brawl. Of course, follow us on Facebook. Subscribe, like, hit the comment section on YouTube. Tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. Support us, please. We just some young melanated brothers who love professional wrestling. You know, we want to get on
Follow
there. Melanated power.
Get on this following.
Yeah, just get on this following. Just join the train. Join the wave, baby.
Yes,
Unity.
You know, join the wave, baby.
Yes.
And also, man, just make sure you be out for episode 7, which we will touch on a lot of stuff that happened, you know, preceding Backlash. So just make sure you tune in for episode 7. We will record this week. So we out.
We out. Take it easy, y'all.